Hey, we're back for another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com and Grok Media LLC. This week, we're talking about extortion. Who? Who's getting extorted? Me. That's who. Find out more in just a minute. GrokTALK resumes in less than 60 seconds. New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you. GraniteRock.com has been around since 2006, meaning that next year is our 20th anniversary. It's also the nation's 250th anniversary. If you happen to be somebody who is creative and can draw or would like to donate some time, I'm looking for a graphic, something I can use to celebrate the 250th birthday of America and the 20th birthday of Granite Rock. And I invite you to submit that to me at steve@graniterock.com. It could be good, fun, funny, whatever. You know, I can't pay you, and you'll find out why in a minute. But I appreciate it if you're interested in donating that time and energy for us, and we look forward to anybody who wants to step up and give it a whack, or a whirl, if you prefer. So anyway, I hinted at, or I didn't hint at all, I said straight out, extortion. So let's start with the topic of copyright. Copyright's pretty important to us. If you read our FAQ, you'll see that we stand up and behind the right to fair use of certain things to make a point that are basically necessary for the context of the article to really bring home the story or to tell the tale or whatever it is. And so we've been doing that for a very long time. And in the past, we have had some issues with copyright with owners of images or whatever that have asked us to take them down. And as is clearly stated in our FAQ, we absolutely will do that as promptly as we can. If you don't feel it's fair use, even if it is fair use, we'll take it down. If it's yours and you can prove it that it's yours, we're fine with that. That's just great, okay? And by the same token, we let anybody use anything we have on their websites as long as they just link to us and give us credit. It's a lot easier. There's no nonsense. I don't think we've ever had to ask anybody to take anything down. We have had actual media use some of our stuff and not give us credit. But other than that, it's been pretty smooth sailing. We had one incident a few years back where we had used some unlicensed images from Associated Press, and we ended up having to pay a small fee to make that go away. So it's a very real problem, and it's one we've been trying to police for many years. We've gone to great lengths to try to make sure that the images that are picked by our authors or sent to us, sometimes as memes or whatever, that we're allowed to use them, that the context in which they're used is fair use. And I recently ran into a very large brick wall on that topic. So the previous case was with a law firm in California called Higbee & Associates, who are now officially part of the Associated Press's dream team of headhunters for people who use unlicensed images. They've also been joined by another organization, a private company called PicRights. I got an email from PicRights 2 weeks ago today, in fact, saying that I had 20 unlicensed AP images on my website. And I was a little surprised because I do try to make sure that whatever we have is fair use. So they didn't think so. They said to avoid any legal complications, we needed to take those images down, which I did immediately. And they wanted roughly $7,000 in compensation for our unlicensed use or inappropriate assumption that it was fair use for those 20 pictures. That was kind of a thing, right? I was a little stunned by that. So I noticed, I don't know if it was intentional or deliberate or if they just took a shot in the dark or if this is just the way they work, but if you look at our fundraising thermometer, it's almost at $7,000. So I thought that was a little suspicious. It may or may not be the case. They may just have this number that they use when they do this. I'll get into the details of that shortly. So anyway, I took the images down because that's the right thing to do. I then went on a little binge and went through the entire image library trying to find anything that might also be AP or somebody else's property that I couldn't tell if it was fair use or not. We have 47,477 items in our media library. We have 45,931 pictures or images or drawings or cartoons. Let's just say I spent a little bit of my time in the last week or so trying to get through all that. I think I did it. I think I got it done. I think everything that's in there is fair use, but I don't know for sure. So anyway, another thing I learned is that memes, which I assumed were always fair use, aren't. So if you're making memes, and I've contacted some of the meme people that send us stuff, just as a courtesy to let them know what the situation is that this is for people who create memes and share memes, all right? Even if you share a meme that somebody else created and it has a photograph that is the property of, for example, the Associated Press, organizations like Pick Rights will come and find you and fine you for that because you don't have a license. Talk about the license in a second, too. So it's kind of like extortion, right? This is a tiny website. I mean, we're a big website. We have a lot of reach. Since we upgraded the thing, our unique users every day has gone up from like 4,500 to close to 20,000. And that's the unique IPs. That's not even page views. Page views is going to be higher. Google's not going to report that, but this is the actual raw data from our hosting company. We get roughly 20,000 unique IPs accessing GrokTALK.com every single day. It's a pretty big number. And so the page view number is going to be at least a couple times higher than that. So we have a lot of traffic, but we don't run a lot of ads because we want people to come and have as ad-free an experience as possible. So we're not generating a ton of money from ads. We're not generating a ton of money from literally anything. Donations are still a little on the thin side, and I'm going to need your help with that. But and we do have an opportunity to really make a huge dent in our donations, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of this program. So anyway, they wield the threat of legal action against websites that can't possibly afford to go to court. Period. They just can't. And while the use was unlicensed, the question is what is reasonable compensation? And since you can't go to court, you have to negotiate this with the people who want the money. In the name of AP. AP has approved them to do this to, quote unquote, protect their licensing rights. So after I got my email from Pick Rights, I reached out to AP and said, hey, I'm just curious. I'm interested. I have a website. We use images all the time. What would it cost, to be able to actually officially license images through AP? And he wanted to do a call, but I wasn't available, and then he wasn't available, and we ended up just doing this over email. Jim Clark, he is the director of major accounts, okay? He told me, after finding out what a small operation this is, which is me and a couple of volunteers, that they might be able to do a deal for $750 a month for 30 images. I'm like, well, we really probably can't afford that, so, but thank you. And I'll get back to you if things change. So that's $25 an image. That's the AP license cost, $25 an image. Pick Rights wanted $350 an image, 14 times what AP offered me as a tiny website for 30 images a month, $750, $25 an image. You look at close to $7,000. If you do the numbers, it works out to exactly $350 an image in compensation for accidentally using 20 pictures. Seems like extortion to me. So I've been trying to address the price gouging. I'm negotiating with them about it, and I'm waiting for them to get back to me on a sum that's more reasonable, within reach. How about possible? I did a little more research. AP is a nonprofit. nonprofit company, with over $500 million in assets as of, I think it was 2022. So it's probably more now. 500 million. That's a lot. PickRates is a private company. And after doing a little research, they've experienced a great deal of growth lately. I wonder where that came from. And so it seems like they're making their money by shaking people down. I mean, and it appears to be legal shaking down. And that might be the problem. I mean, maybe this is something that if I survive it, I need to bring the attention to the Attorney General's office in New Hampshire, who, by the way, we take potshots at on a regular basis because we're not terribly fond of the way they do business. So I'm not expecting much from them, right? And I can't go to court because it'll cost me more just to get to court than I would actually have to pay them. And that's the hook I'm on. And that's the hook a lot of websites are on. I can't even tell you how many. So again, just to reiterate, be very, very careful about the images that you use. If you happen to have a Substack or you blog or whatever you do, if you create memes, if you share memes on your socials, usually socials are pretty safe. Screen grabs of images and memes on socials is a pretty gray area. You may or may not be protected, and it is entirely possible that some organization like PickRates, since clearly it's a huge profit opportunity, is going to come after you and try to basically shake you down, right? And, I'm not saying that it's right to use unlicensed material. I protect copyright wherever I can. I have people who write or provide content for us and say, listen, I want to retain the rights to my stuff. And I said, you absolutely retain the rights to your stuff. But the minute you give it to us, we also retain the rights to your stuff because you've given us permission to publish it. So that's important, right? And we will protect your rights. But we're not going to shake anybody down for it. We're going to ask them to put in a link or put in your name. We're not going to tell them you owe us $7,000. I am negotiating, as stated earlier. We are attempting to get that number down somewhere reasonable, a lot less than what they're asking for. And I've used the example 14 times, the AP price. And then they did offer me a slight discount, which was only 11 times the original AP price. So I'm still working it. I will have to pay them something. I mean, they were unlicensed images. They were on the website. I didn't catch them. I've already sent out messages to everybody who provides content for us to say, look, I have to be really, really vigilant about this. And it's my responsibility because I'm the person who ends up having to pay for it. So it is going to hurt a little bit. And we are working on some new fundraising opportunities, as I mentioned earlier. We'll come out the other side of it one way or another. We're not going to go to court. We can't afford to. But we are going to learn a lesson, and that's what life is about, right? That's how the free market works. That's how everything goes. You take a little beating, and then you move on. And we recommend that to Democrats who have been taking a beating quite a bit since Trump got elected, and they're not terribly happy about it. Well, I'm sorry. Too bad. That's how the world works. So here we are, right? In this situation, living the ideals that we espouse. Now, I have an opportunity coming up in about a week or so. We're going to start running a donation campaign. A very, thank God for this person, someone in New England who is coming to some money, has offered to do a 100% match on donations from a date soon to be mentioned, coming up in August, until the end of the year. And I'm not exactly sure, nor am I going to state exactly how much that they will match, but we've never had this before. Nobody's ever volunteered to match donations. So if you can even give us $5, that's another $5 from them. If you can give us 10, that's even better. 100 is 200. And there are a few people out here in our audience and people who've supported us in the past who could write a check for a couple $1,000s. Now would be a really good time for that because we need to fund this website. We need to fund independent media. And when I say independent media, I mean for real, because we are probably the only website in New Hampshire or New England with any kind of reach that isn't beholden to anybody, not for advertising dollars, not for political access. We are truly independent. We are an independent opinion journalism And if you like that sort of thing, and you think it's worthwhile to have it, even if you don't always agree with us, and that should be an important point because we're not here to just agree with everybody, and we've made that pretty clear. You know, we would love it if you would just make a donation and help support us, generally speaking, so that we can continue to pay for our operating costs through this year and into next year. But as part of this, trying to help us cover this whole AP pick rates thing. And I'm not bad-mouthing pick rates. Clearly, they're doing whatever they are doing within the law. I happen to think it's legalized extortion. And we'll let you know how it works out in the end. But for now, we will continue to do whatever we have to do to keep Granite Grok up and running and following the licensing rules so that we do not step on AP's toes and get ourselves in trouble. So if there's anything you can do to help us in this regard, you don't have to send me emails saying, oh, you're getting screwed, yada, yada, yada. I understand that. I got that in spades. I have spoken to a handful of lawyers and I've gotten different answers on both sides, but primarily that it would just be too expensive to try to litigate my way out of this, and I could very well lose anyway, which would be even more expensive. So I think just bringing attention to the fact that this is out there, that it's real, that it can happen to you, and that you should be careful, right? Just be careful out there. Thanks.
GrokTALK.